USC Annenberg, all right. Listen, I am surprised I have a voice after cheering for that marching band. Thank you, Shauna, for that special introduction. You are a trailblazer for all of us in the industry, and it's an honor to be up here with you today. And graduates, I'm gonna say this, I give you a one-time pass to watch CBS Mornings, then you turn that channel right back to ABC News on Good Morning America, okay? To my role model, Dean Willow Bay, a mentor who has pulled out a chair for me when I felt like I didn't have a seat at the table. Thank you for your unwavering commitment to the next generation of storytellers and innovators, and thank you for the very special honor to be here today. To the Annenberg faculty, many of whom were my own professors, guess who's back? Didn't think you'd see me so soon, huh? And most importantly, my fellow Trojans, Annenberg class of 2022, you made it. It feels so good to be back home with you all today, and I'm gonna go off script for just 1 second because this is a very big tent. But there is not a tent big enough for the joy in this room, okay? The only thing better than seeing your faces was to see your parents, your loved ones, your aunts sitting behind you. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I got here at 8 a.m. and there were already people here waiting to see you walk across this stage. So please give it up for the people who have sacrificed so much for you to sit where you are now. And after 3 hours, parents, now you gotta listen to me. So it worked out. Well, you know, when Willow first called me to extend this invitation, I did what every full-fledged adult would do, and I immediately called my parents. My dad answered the phone, and I said, "Dad, you're never gonna believe it. I'm going to be a commencement speaker at USC." My dad said, "Wow, USC could pick anyone." I said, "Yeah, sure could." He said, "Well, didn't Oprah do it one year?" I said, yeah, sure did." He said, "Well, what are you gonna do when they figure out you're not Oprah?" Leave it to your parents to keep you humble, right? So let me just get right out in front of it. Unlike many commencement speakers who have come before me, I do not have a 50-year-long resume to tell you about. I don't have stories about the good old days, and I can't tell you what it was like before the internet existed. But I can tell you one thing. I know exactly what it's like to be sitting in your shoes right now. Because not too long ago, I was you. Not too long ago, I was navigating the campus on my final days as a USC student, carrying what felt like 75 pounds of camera gear, and just hoping to God I can make it to class without getting hit by a bike. Oh, and yes, I remember that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you realize the next time you walk through those doors of the Annenberg Media Center, it won't be as a student, it will be as alumni. The goosebumps on your arms, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the chill down your spine when you heard that USC fight song play on your graduation day. And I remember sitting exactly where you guys are right now. I was next to someone who had one too many shots at the 9-0 the night before. Y'all know who you are. I see you. Ain't shy about it. Okay, parents, that is a bar. That is a bar. But in all seriousness, today you have earned the gold on your resume. You are graduating from the most prestigious school for communication and journalism in the nation, and you have earned it. Graduating from this university remains one of my proudest accomplishments. But it almost didn't happen. In fact, 11 years ago, I was rejected from USC. Yeah, I know, it hurts. Still stings, y'all, still stings. Like so many of you sitting here today, this was my dream school. Senior year of high school, you couldn't tell me that I wasn't gonna get into this university. So when word got out that USC was mailing out their acceptance letters, I raced home. And sitting in my mailbox was this tiny envelope from USC. It was a rejection letter. It was my rejection letter. So naturally, I appealed the decision. And guess what? I was rejected again. Still didn't get in. I was devastated, but most of all, I was ashamed. I felt like a failure. And as I was wandering down my road of self-pity, my mom essentially said something that every Black child has heard at one point. Fix your face. It's a phrase that's used in our community that's code for, it's time to move on. It's time to change your perspective. She said, this was not meant to be your blessing, but if you keep looking backwards, you are going to miss yours. And that's the thing that no one tells you about failure. Nestled in those deep corners of self-pity and doubt is often a blessing waiting in the wings. But you'll miss it if you're looking the other way. So if anything, failure is testing one thing. How bad do you really want it? For me, I wanted it so bad that I spent the next year focused on academics, getting the best grades of my life, applying to every single internship, and my blessing did come at 19 years old as one of the youngest interns at the White House. I sat in on presidential interviews. I watched White House correspondents challenge the press secretary. It's where I fell in love with political journalism. And though I couldn't see it at the time, that rejection letter was actually pushing me closer to new opportunities, to a dream I had not yet realized. And when I finally got into this great university as a transfer student, shout out to all the transfer students, not only was I thankful, I was very thankful, I could better align my steps with the path that I wanted to pursue. My Trojan family, do not be ashamed of failure. Be grateful for the direction it is pointing you in. Do not be terrified of rejection, but fear missing the blessing that is waiting for you in the wings because you're so focused on looking backwards. 11 years later, I wouldn't trade that rejection letter for anything. And that is the beautiful thing about being with you all here today. We all took different paths to get here, but we all have made it. Look no further than Leo Sorensen, who is sitting here in his cap and gown today. Leo was born with cerebral palsy and a visual impairment, but he did not let that stop him because for the past 3 years, he's been leading class lectures, sparking a dialogue about disabilities. And today, Leo is graduating with a bachelor's in public relations. Leo, today you have made it. And what about Bridget Smith, a mother, a caregiver to her own mother? You may know her because she works here in the Annenberg admissions office. And 30 years after graduating from college, she decided to go back to school to get her master's degree. Bridget, it is never too late to become a Trojan. Today, you have made it. And Lupe Yanez. There she is. Lupe randomly messaged me on Instagram to tell me that she also got rejected from USC. I was humbled when she shared that when she applied to the graduate program, she wrote about my story in her personal statement. Lupe's father was detained by immigration and customs enforcement officers. She says the van left before she had a chance to say goodbye. She shouted, begging for him to stay. Lupe, the next time you see your father, you won't be saying, "Papa, don't go." Instead, you'll be the first in your family with a master's degree to say, "Papa, we did it." Lupe, today you have made it. You have all pushed past challenges by betting on yourself. You have redefined what is possible and you have succeeded on your own terms. And for that, I am so proud to be part of your Trojan family. But like family, I gotta be honest with you. What's on the other end of that diploma will not always be easy. At times, it will be absolutely terrifying. You are entering an industry that is changing by the minute, racing to keep up with a world that is consuming information in shorter amounts of time, on new apps and platforms where posts and presence are now heavily integrated in a job that once only required a reporter's notebook and a sharp mind. And so to succeed in this space, it will require diving headfirst into a path that may be unconventional. It will require leaning into every single tool that Annenberg has armed you with, to innovate, to create, to inform, to question, to discover. And to succeed, it might require doing something different. Not everyone will trust in your vision. Just a few weeks before I graduated, I decided to take a risk. I turned down a reporter job in Fayetteville, Arkansas, to instead move to one of the most expensive cities in the world, New York. Though I wanted to be on camera, that's not how my career would begin. I would be a production associate at the bottom of the ladder with two big assignments: making copies and making coffee. When I called the news director in Arkansas to let her know that I would not be taking the position, she said to me, "This would be the biggest mistake of my early career." She said, "You'll be living in a box and calling in a year begging for a job." She was right about one thing. I did live in a box. Have y'all seen the New York City apartments? They are small. The wisdom, though, that she was trying to share was based on a status quo that was set decades before I even entered the room. That there was a traditional model, a tried and true method. My fellow Trojans, let my story serve as evidence that you can shake things up. Sometimes our decisions are so clouded by the status quo that we talk ourselves out of a great opportunity, convinced the best option is the safest one, the most practical, the one with the best track record. Today, I challenge you to question what is driving your decisions. And if it's fear of doing something different, then get out of your own way. I wish I could have proven that news director wrong in a couple of months. Believe me, I was dying to say I told you so. But I would spend the next few years working late nights, overnights, early mornings, you name it. And the only time I ever second-guessed myself was when I started to look at what everybody else was doing around me. Honestly, that is the hardest part about graduating from USC Annenberg. It's the excellence. You're surrounded by it, from your faculty, to your classmates, to the alumni. And it's so easy to get caught up in what everybody else is doing. So let me just say this. Comparison is a trap. I spent so much of my first few years focused on the great things that everybody else was doing that I couldn't see the opportunities that were right in front of me. One of my favorite sayings is, you go from room to room searching for the diamond necklace that is already around your neck. Trust your own path. Lean into it. When I used to run track, my coach always noticed that I was losing races when I turned my head to see who was coming up from behind me. I would slow down. I would lose sight of the finish line. Your future is too bright not to be focused on what is in front of you. Free yourself from measuring your success by how quickly everybody else is getting it done. When your goal is to learn as much as you can, you will be surprised by how quickly you will get there. Here are some other things that I learned in my first few years on the job. Invest in a good raincoat. Believe it or not, it does rain outside of California. The best way to get a promotion is by doing your current job really well. No one wins a game by complaining or gossiping about the other team. They win by doing the work. And on your toughest days, push yourself. And it may be hard, but really push yourself to find something to be grateful for. For me, that moment is always looking at the line of people waiting to get into the Capitol. The visitors outside the White House gates, just trying to get a glimpse, a peek at what's on the other side. It's always a reminder that even on my hardest days, there's an immense amount of privilege and responsibility that I carry with my press credential. And when you're the newcomer, the junior member on the team, the imposter syndrome can kick in. That feeling of, am I good enough? Do I really deserve it? Is this White House press credential really gonna let me into the actual White House? Do not let the narrative you tell yourself distract from the reality of all the work you put in to get there. I stopped asking myself if I fit in and started to realize it is far better to stand out. Significant opportunities in your career will come when you least expect it. Last June, Russian President Vladimir Putin held a press conference after his meeting with President Biden in Geneva. And so just 48 hours out, I was assigned to go. What I didn't know at the time is that I would be one of the only American journalists in the room. Annenberg taught me that our jobs are to ask tough questions no matter what country you are in or what political leader you are in front of, to press for accountability, to press for answers. And so here I was, suddenly confronted with a situation where I had to put that into practice with a man who was known around the world for being a murderous dictator. I said, okay, Rachel, here we go. I asked President Putin why all of his political rivals were dead, in prison, or poisoned. What are you so afraid of? I said. And so to the journalism students graduating here today, there will be a time where you are before a world leader, where you need to ask a tough question. Remember that the questions you ask matter. Spend time doing the research, listen, and when someone doesn't answer your question the first time, hold firm and follow up. I'd like to close with one last story from my time here at USC. I was speaking at a conference, sharing my experiences as an Annenberg student, and I quoted Diane Sawyer, who had just visited the newsroom a few days earlier. She said, "Journalism is the business of changing the world." When I finished, it was time to take questions. A man stood up and he said, "I take issue with what you are saying. Journalism is not the business of changing the world. You are not a doctor. You won't find a cure for cancer, solve world hunger." I froze. I didn't know what to say. It was the first and the last time I let anyone question the power of storytelling, the power that I had to make an impact on the world. I didn't have the words then, but I do now. Where will we be as a country if journalists and photographers never captured John Lewis and Amelia Boynton being beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma for the right to vote? It's those images that gripped a nation, that led to voting rights legislation. Where will we be as a world today if journalists were not risking their lives to document the brutal horrors of Russia's invasion of Ukraine? Would we really know the extent of the violence? Do not let anyone question the power of storytelling, the power of your own story. I am standing before you just several generations removed from slavery, and every single day I walk into the Capitol or a White House built by slaves. I am a two-time USC reject standing before you giving a commencement address at USC. You can't tell me that our stories don't have power. I read it in the letters I've received from all over the world. A woman named Kelsey who told me that my question to President Putin brought her to tears, that as an attorney it reminded her to be confident as a woman asking tough questions in the courtroom. To Siobhan in Ireland, who wrote me, "If you ever thought your message was not reaching the masses, I am proof that it is." Or the students studying in Geneva who figured out where my live shot was hours after I asked President Putin that question, and they gathered outside of my hotel room shouting freedom of the press. What I've come to learn is that it doesn't matter how far you climb, how high you rise, there will be doubters along the way. Even at your highest moments, people will make you second guess just how remarkable you really are. They will call your success luck, They'll label it an accident. They'll confuse all those late nights you pulled with being an overnight success. Others might equate your optimism with your youth, mistake your persistence for stubbornness, dismiss your potential as inexperience, and some may even be bold enough to tell you that the stories you tell cannot change the world. Remember that you are worthy. When faced with doubt, when you feel like you're the only one in the room with your story, I want you to take a moment and think of everyone whose shoulders you stand on. I want you to remember today, this moment, surrounded by your loved ones, your fellow Trojan family, the graduates sitting by your side. Even though they may not be in the same room as you are, they will be trailblazing a path for others, in other rooms, in other spaces. That is the power of the Trojan family. That is the power of Annenberg. Find comfort in knowing that together we can all drive change. We can all make the spaces where we sit better. We can all be in the business of changing the world. Thank you, class of 2022. Congratulations, my fellow Trojans.